All right, I have to apologize that I'm making so many videos about UC Berkeley and all of the nonsense that's been going on there for the past couple of weeks, but I really just can't get enough of how ridiculous Antifa is making themselves to be. As most of you know by now, Ann Coulter canceled her speaking date at Berkeley, but was replaced by Lauren Southern, Bay Stick Man, and Gavin McGinnis, surrounded by an army of Proud Boys. It was pretty funny, but it was also a little bit boring and kind of a letdown if you were watching the live stream. Reports seemed to indicate yesterday that Antifa were too weirded out by the large size of the crowd to cause violence. There seemed to be a lot more for the Ann Coulter thing than for the previous protests that were going on. They were planning on stirring up trouble when Lauren Southern spoke publicly, but then backed out by the size of the crowd. So basically it was a dud. And that's all she wrote on UC Berkeley for a while. As I've said before, Milo Yiannopoulos is gearing up for a week-long event at UC Berkeley in the fall, and I imagine that's where more problems will start, and we will probably see them back in the news again, but that's a ways away. So I think that's all that's going to come for Berkeley for a while. But before we close the curtain on Berkeley and enjoy the rest of our summer, there was one more thing I wanted to make a video about. It's relatively insignificant, but I think it speaks to the motives and worldview of Berkeley Antifa and Antifa in general, really, because I don't think Antifa are going away, and if they're going to be something we have to deal with, we really should understand how they think. And I think this example that I brought up is a really good example of some of the fallacies in their thinking. So on Thursday, when all this was going on, Berkeley Antifa posted a tweet that gave a link to an article from East Bay Express, which is a website I'm not too familiar with. I don't live on the West Coast. But it's titled Blacklisted, How the Oakland Police Department Discriminates Against Rappers and Music Venues. Berkeley Antifa then wrote a caption that said that this is what it actually looks like when free speech is violated. I won't go over the article in too much detail, but it covers how local rap venues in Oakland have had to pay more money to the Oakland PD whenever certain rappers are slated to play at a show. The article talks to a guy named Filthy Rich and how he had to cancel a release show at the last minute because police showed up and said this show is going to be a problem. It goes on to say basically that the police in Oakland treat rappers differently than non-rappers. Then they also they treat venues that host rap shows differently than venues that don't host rap shows. And that's, of course, because of systemic racism. It's because they're all victims, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. This won't be surprising, but I Googled a few lyrics of Filthy Rich to see if there were any violent lyrics in his songs, and I did find some. And that's not even a big deal for me. I'm actually a big fan of hip-hop. It's mostly what I listen to. And it's just a genre that happens to have a lot of violent lyricism. That doesn't mean they should be shut down. I also looked to see where Filthy Rich, whether he had a rap sheet, and he did. I also found plenty of comments saying that the Oakland rap music is full of gangbangers, and these venues actually provoke a lot of violence. There's been violence in the past, that some of these establishments are incredibly shady, and those honest enough in Oakland willing to admit that tend to admit it. So here's the thing. The music venues mentioned in this article are private businesses. They're establishments that have to get government permits before they are allowed to host artists. The police look into these artists to see if they have a prior case of violence at their shows, which is a recurring problem in Oakland. These police don't have a problem with the actual speech of the artist, no matter how violent the speech is. I mean, there are artists who go on who have "fuck the police" lyrics. Hip-hop is an excessively violent genre, and there are plenty of rappers who are anti-cop, talk about cop killings and so on. I mean, this isn't a new thing. This has been going on for decades. They have a problem, the police have a problem with actual violence being performed at these venues, which it seems to be a more specific problem to Oakland. And if there is a more reasonable chance that violence is going to occur at these venues, then the cops tell the venue owners that there is a problem and it's going to cost them more for security fees if they want to put on a show. Now, UC Berkeley is a government institution, specifically a university, that doesn't tolerate violence on its premises. Berkeley police have no reason to assume that Ann Coulter or even Milo are going to perform violence at these speaking events. They also have no reason to assume the people that attend these events will perform violence either. These talks usually comprise of the speaker talking for a certain period of time, followed by a question and answer session that may or may not spark an argument, and then the show ends. That's about it. And that's how college lectures are supposed to be. The reason that these talks were controversial in the first place is because of the violence that was produced by Antifa. If Antifa sat down in the audience and engaged with Ann Coulter in a question and answer session about why she's wrong, about why she is, anti-feminist and why she loves the patriarchy and she's a racist, whatever, there would have been no problems and this event would not have been canceled. It was canceled specifically because Antifa threatened violence for having Ann Coulter talk in the first place. In the exact same way, the Oakland police were worried about certain groups who have a history of causing violence at these rap shows. They have equal concern for ideological extremists who threaten violence at speaking events. The UC Berkeley case is even worse when you hold an institution like a university in high esteem, as anyone who is intellectually honest should. A university is a place that is supposed to welcome differences of opinion. Universities are supposed to be places where people of all ideological positions can get together and they can debate their positions in a safe environment without having to worry about violence. That's what a university is supposed to be. This tweet perfectly encapsulates to me what's wrong with Antifa. Their position is that the authorities are discriminating against certain rappers, when they're actually discriminating against the people breaking the law by causing violence at events put on by these rappers. By not realizing this, Antifa are endorsing people who cause actual violence to other people, right? So in the exact same way, Antifa performed violence at these Berkeley protests because they feel discriminated by the opinions of the speaker, even though the speaker has not threatened any violence. They don't like Ann Coulter for the exact same reason they don't like the Oakland police, even though neither are the ones causing the actual violence. Most of us place a very thick line between speech and action. I believe a person can say whatever they want as long as they don't threaten immediate violence. Antifa does not make this distinction. They see speech as violence, and that's why people who hold the same values as Antifa disavow them. That's why they're getting farther and further away from the mainstream, and even the mainstream media are starting to disavow them. So just to break this down, Berkeley Antifa has a problem with cops being concerned about convicted felons putting on music events that have historically shown to be a problem because the police are supposedly discriminating against black people. But for some reason, they don't have a problem with causing the violence at these university college events. This is the absurdity of Antifa. And this is why they're going to seem more and more absurd in the future. And the more they do it, the more guys like Bay Stick Man, the more guys like Gavin McInnes and Ann Coulter and Milo Yiannopoulos, they're going to seem more and more legitimate. Because at this point, there's no other reasonable side, right? Liberals aren't standing up for their values. Liberals aren't decrying the actions that are being caused by Antifa. Antifa are doing whatever they want. And some liberals are either praising them for it or they are staying quiet about it. And the only ones at this point who actually care about free speech are conservatives. Mostly Trump supporters. All right, so that's all I got for today, guys. Remember to like and subscribe. Appreciate it. Appreciate you.